This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Imagine a chair. It's 1831, you're in Berlin, and the mood is tense. Political anxiety, coal smoke in the air. And we're talking about this one specific chair. It's not just furniture. It's the academic throne at the University of Berlin.
A throne that was occupied for years by Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who, you could argue, was the most powerful philosopher on the planet.
The man who basically said history itself had culminated in the Prussian state.
He was the intellectual king of Europe, a total rock star.
Right, he's the rock star. But then he dies. Suddenly. Cholera. And this is the mystery that kicks off our whole deep dive today.
That for 10 years after his death, that chair, it just sits empty.
A decade, which today is just, it's unthinkable. A star professor dies, and the department is scrambling to fill that spot.
Before the body's even cold, right?
Yeah.
You want to keep the prestige, keep the money coming in, but here, nothing. Silence.
And the sources we're digging into today, this incredible institutional history, it makes it very clear this wasn't an accident.
Not just, bad administration. No. It was a conspiracy. It was about government censorship, fear of revolution, and how the Prussian state was trying to weaponize philosophy.
So the mission for this deep dive is to really get our heads around systematic philosophy. Not just as, a bunch of really hard books.
But as a kind of operating system.
Yeah.
A uniquely German operating system for the state itself.
We're going to look at why they built it, how they tried to control it, and then why, after World War II, it just completely collapsed.
And that story has to start with that empty chair.
Yeah.
And the sheer panic inside the Prussian Ministry of Culture in 1831. Hegel wasn't just another professor.
He was the face of the system.
He was.
Okay, let's break that down, because the system sounds a little sci-fi.
Yeah.
When we say Hegel had a system, what do we actually mean?
That's a crucial point. Today, philosophy might be about language games or ethics puzzles. For Hegel, a system was a total explanation.
A theory of everything.
Exactly. Tied together logic, nature, history, art, religion, the state. Everything in one giant, unbreakable circle of thought.
And the key part, the part the Prussian government really liked, was this idea that the real is the rational.
Which basically means history isn't just one random thing after another. It's reason, with a capital R, unfolding in the world. And its highest manifestation was, well, the Prussian monarchy.
So if you're the king, this is the best news you've ever heard. This guy is giving you metaphysical proof that you should be in charge.
He's justifying your entire government as the pinnacle of human history. It's the perfect state ideology. But there's a problem with the total system.
It's finished.
It's rigid. It claims to be complete. And by the time Hegel died, the government realized his ideas were becoming, well, too complete. They were stifling. And they were dangerous.
Dangerous how?
The fear was they didn't want a second Hegel, someone who might take the system and come up with a new conclusion.
A conclusion that maybe doesn't end with the king on top.
Exactly. They realized that a philosophy that powerful is a loaded gun, and they did not want anyone else picking it up.
So leaving the chair empty was a containment strategy.
It was an explicit one. They wanted the system to just cool down. They wanted managers, not visionaries. And you see it in the hiring records our sources lay out.
They kept the Hegelians around.
Hegelians, yes, guys like Michelet and Hotho, but they kept them as caretakers.
Caretakers? That sounds like a fancy word for janitor.
Intellectually, it was. Their job was to edit Hegel's works, organize his lecture notes, and just preserve the dogma. No innovation allowed.
They wanted the brand, but not the R&D department.
Perfectly put.
Yeah.
They wanted the prestige without the risk of new ideas.
But you can't just have editors running a department. They had to hire someone to teach.
Right, he did. And this is where the government plays this very cynical, very clever card. They bring in a man named Friedrich Adolf Trendelenburg.
Okay, and his job was to?
His job was to be a targeted strike against the whole Hegelian way of thinking.
Was he radical?
The opposite. He was boring. And that was the entire point. Trendelenburg was an Aristotelian, all about formal logic, categories, empirical details.
Okay, help me out. Why is a logic nerd so dangerous to a Hegelian?
Because Hegel's whole system is about flow. It's about how logic itself moves history forward. Trendelenburg comes in and just pours cold water on all of that.
How?
He says, wait a second, logic doesn't move anything. It's just a tool for sorting things. If you want to know how the world works, you have to go look at it, not just think about it.
So he cuts the link between thought and reality.
He breaks the spell. He was a sobering agent. He was hired to stop philosophy from being a political weapon by making it a dry, technical discipline again.
So the strategy for 10 years is bore them to death.
Dilute the wine. Exactly.
But then 1841 comes and the silence breaks. They bring in a huge name. Schelling returns.
The return of Schelling. It's one of the great dramatic moments in intellectual history. Schelling was Hegel's old roommate, his old rival.
Right.
He's from an older generation, basically in semi-retirement.
So why bring him back? If the boring strategy was working, why risk another superstar?
Because it had backfired.
Yeah.
Terribly. While the chair was empty and the department was being bored to death, Hegel's students, the young Hegelians, they'd gone completely rogue.
Ah, these are the radicals. Karl Marx is in this crowd, isn't he?
Marx, Feuerbach, Bauer, yeah. They took Hegel's method, the idea that you have to subject everything to critical reason, and they turned it on the state and the church.
They started asking the dangerous
They
questions.
started asking, if reason is the ultimate authority, why do we need a literal king? If the human mind is supreme, why do we need God?
That's a spectacular backfire. They tried to preserve Hegel as a conservative statue, and his students used his own hammer to smash it.
The ideas mutated in the dark. So the new king, Friedrich Wilhelm IV, he calls Schelling to Berlin with one job. The sources quote the letter.
What's it say?
His job is to destroy the dragon seed of Hegelian radicalism.
That sounds like a police action. Go suppress the
It
insurrection.
was an intellectual police action. But the amazing irony is that it failed. In the audience for Schelling's first lecture, you have Kierkegaard, Engels, Bakunin.
All the people who are about to blow up the 19th century. The genie was already out.
Way out. But to really get why the government was so panicked, we have to look at the university itself. The source material talks about something called the mother faculty.
Right. The philosophy faculty in 1840 was not what we think of today.
Not at all. Under the Humboldt model, the university had a very specific structure. You had what they call the higher faculties: law, medicine,
Of
theology.
the professional schools.
Right. They were trade schools to get you a job. But then there was the philosophy faculty, and it contained, well, everything else.
Like what?
Math, physics, chemistry, biology, history, linguistics. It all lived inside the philosophy faculty.
Wait, so if I'm a physicist in 1840s Berlin, my boss is a philosopher.
In essence, yes. Philosophy was the queen bee. Its job was to integrate all of those different disciplines into one coherent system. It was the glue holding all of knowledge together.
That is an incredible amount of power. No wonder they cared so much about who is in that chair. He's setting the narrative for all of science.
Exactly. But then, the sources describe what they call the Great Divorce.
The kids move out.
And they take the furniture and the funding. This starts happening around the 1850s and goes through the 1890s. The driver isn't some big idea. It's the Industrial Revolution.
With all of the money.
Always. Physics and chemistry start needing labs. Really expensive labs. You can't run a chemistry experiment with metaphysical speculation. You need beakers and burners.
Right.
So the natural sciences lobby to split off and form their own faculty with their own budget.
It's the great unbundling of the university.
Totally. Then history and philology go off to form the humanities. Later, psychology, which had been a core part of philosophy, splits off with Wundt to become its own experimental science.
So by, what, the turn of the 20th century, the philosophy faculty has been stripped bare, the scientists are gone, the historians are gone. What's left for a philosopher to even do?
That's the tragic question. By 1900, the faculty is left with just one main job: explaining the history of how all of knowledge used to be united.
Oh, wow. So it goes from creating knowledge to just curating the museum of its own past glory.
It became a department of leftovers.
This context completely changes how I see someone like Edmund Husserl. I always picture him as this, confident pioneer of phenomenology.
But the sources reframe him brilliantly. When you look at him through this institutional lens, he looks like a man in a panic.
His whole push for philosophy as a rigorous science.
It makes perfect sense. He's looking around and his discipline has lost everything. It's not math, it's not science, it's not psychology. He is terrified that philosophy is about to become totally irrelevant.
So his argument about studying the structures of consciousness was actually a defensive play.
It was a desperate attempt to stop the bleeding. He's trying to argue that philosophy still has one essential job: to be the foundation for all those other sciences that left.
He was trying to be the boss again. You guys can have your labs, but I own the logic behind the labs.
He was fighting to keep that mother faculty dream alive. But then, history intervenes. Again, World War I.
And the whole mood just shifts.
Completely. The German Empire collapses. The defeat is a national trauma. And all this talk of science and reason and progress, it suddenly feels like a sick joke.
Technology had just been used to gas millions of men in trenches.
Right. So Husserl's call for rigorous science just sounded completely tone-deaf to a generation that had watched science destroy its world.
And enter Martin Heidegger.
The dark, charismatic student. Heidegger sees what's happening. He knows the old fortress philosophy as science is lost. He doesn't even try to save it.
He pivots to the feeling, the mood.
He embraces the defeat. He stops talking about science and starts talking about being, anxiety, death. He creates a philosophy that speaks directly to the soul of a traumatized, defeated nation.
So while Husserl is the rear guard, trying to save the academic institution,
Heidegger is the counterattack. He abandons the institution to save the cultural relevance of philosophy. He made it vital again.
but not by being a system.
No, the grand system is dead by this point. Heidegger is down in the mud with the individual.
I want to zoom out because we tend to think this story, Hegel to Heidegger, is how philosophy happened everywhere.
But it wasn't. The sources are so clear on this. This whole drama was a German thing. Only in Germany.
What was happening in France or England?
Totally different world. In France, philosophy wasn't about building some grand system for the state. It was a subject for the lycée for high school. It was about rhetoric, citizenship, general education.
Because France already knew what it was. It had the Republic, the Napoleonic Code.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They had a solid political identity. They didn't need a metaphysician to justify the nation's existence.
And England.
Even less so. The English state was unified by parliament, common law, centuries of tradition. Philosophy there was just part of an arts degree, ethics, logic, very practical.
No need for a grand system to prove the nation was rational.
Absolutely none. So Germany was the outlier. And the reason is that Germany was the late nation.
It didn't unify until 1871.
Right. They didn't have those centuries of shared institutions. They had to invent the nation, and they used the university to do it.
Systematic philosophy wasn't just an intellectual exercise.
It was the software for the Prussian state. It justified the bureaucracy, the education system, the whole national project.
Which explains why the stakes for that empty chair were so incredibly high. The philosopher wasn't just a teacher, he was the chief ideological officer for the entire country.
And that brings us to the final collapse. Because if this kind of philosophy is powered by the state, what happens when the state is not just defeated, but utterly destroyed?
You're talking about 1945.
The sources are unanimous on this. Systematic philosophy didn't just fade out. It died in the rubble of World War II.
Because you just couldn't look at the result, the Holocaust, the total ruin, and say, yes, this is the rational unfolding of history.
The link was broken forever. The idea that the state represents the highest form of ethical life, it was shattered. The Hegelian system was proven catastrophically false by the reality of the Nazi regime.
You couldn't be a Hegelian in 1946. It would be obscene.
Impossible. So philosophy after the war, it fractures, it retreats, it goes into language analysis, into social critique with the Frankfurt School.
It becomes humble.
It becomes humble. It stops trying to build systems because it saw where systems can lead.
There is such a tragic irony here. The sources point to this pattern over and over. German philosophy only seems to make these huge leaps forward during national disasters.
That's a very dark rhythm. Napoleon crushes Prussia in 1806, and you get Fichte and Hegel, this incredible burst of idealism to rebuild national pride.
World War I destroys the empire, and you get Heidegger and existentialism to process the trauma.
But the defeat in 1945 was too big. It was terminal. It didn't spark a new system. It ended the whole age of systems.
It really changes how you see those names on a bookshelf. Hegel, Husserl, Heidegger. You think that they're talking about universal truths.
And they are, in a way, but they're also just trying to solve the problem of Germany. And they created these incredible tools that the rest of us picked up. Marxism, phenomenology, existentialism, but we forget the political toolbox they came from.
So, this brings us to today. Because we are living in the world that Great Divorce created. The system is dead. The university is unbundled.
We have all the specialized experts, the labs, the data, but we don't have a mother faculty anymore. There's no place that puts it all together.
We have all parts, but no sense of the whole.
And we don't look to the state for the meaning of life anymore. We look to science for mechanisms, the economy for transactions, but not for meaning.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with. If the system is dead, and the university is just a collection of research silos, is philosophy just a history lesson now? Or is there a new kind of empty chair out there waiting for a way to connect the dots again?
That's the huge question, isn't it? We're drowning in information, but starving for synthesis. Maybe that chair is empty again, just waiting.
Well, if a new occupant is coming, let's just hope it doesn't take another national disaster to get them there this time.
Amen to that.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden machinery of German thought.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you next time. Keep thinking.
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.